Hey, shalom, 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 everybody. How y'all doing? Welcome back, man, to this next session of Reading with Shilo, man. It's Shilo. I hope everybody's doing well. We trying to get it in for the next chapter, chapter number 7, which is love language number 4, man. We have read words of affirmation, giving, quality time. And now we are about to go to acts of service, which is love language number 4, acts of service, man. So we're gonna see what Mr. Gary Chapman has to say for acts of service in chapter 7. Come on in. Let's see what we can do, man. We might read 7 and 8. We're gonna see. For sure. 7 for sure. The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, man. By Gary Chapman. Love language number 4, acts of service. Michelle sat in the living room, pecking away at the laptop. She could hear sounds from the utility room where her husband Brad was catching up with the piles of laundry. She smiled to herself. In recent days, Brad had cleaned the condo, fixed supper, and run the errands, all because Michelle was in the midst of working on her working on her thesis for grad school. It made her feel content or loved. Michelle's primary love language was what I call acts of service. By acts of service, I mean doing things you know your spouse would like you to do. You seek to please her by serving her, to express your love for her by doing things for her. So it was with Doug and Kate, whom we met in the last chapter. Such actions as cooking a meal, setting a table, emptying the dishwasher, vacuuming, changing the baby's diapers, picking up a prescription, keeping the car in operating condition, paying bills, trimming the shrubs, walking the dog, and dealing with landlords and insurance company are all acts of service. They require thought, planning, time, effort, and energy. If done with a positive spirit, they are indeed expressions of love, and they don't necessarily require a lot of time. One man always dreaded the choir or chore of bringing in the garbage can from the curb at the end of a long work week. All he wanted to do was go directly into the house, kick off his shoes, and relax. But some nights were different. As I turned down our street and scanned the horizon for the topple cans, there they were nowhere to be seen. My wife had already taken them into the garage. The empty curb was a clear message to me. I was thinking of you. You were with me, even when you were gone. Conversation in a meal town. I discovered the impact of acts of service in the little village of China Grove, North Carolina. China Grove sits in central North Carolina, originally nestled in China berry trees not far from Andy Griffin's legendary Mayberry, excuse me. At the time of this story, China Grove was a textile town with a population of 1,500. Oh, that's small. That's small. I had been away for more than 10 years, studying anthropology, psychology, and theology. I was making my semi-annual visit to keep in touch with my roots. Almost everyone I knew except Miss Dr. Shin and Dr. Smith worked in the mill. Dr. Shin was the medical doctor, and Dr. Smith was the dentist. And of course, there was Preacher Blackburn, who was pastor of the church. For most couples in China Grove, life centered on the work and church. The conversation at the meal focused on the superintendent's latest decision and how it affected their job in particular. The services at church focused mainly on the anticipated joys of heaven. In that pristine American setting, I discovered love language number 4. I was standing under a chinaberry tree after church on Sunday when a young couple approached me. I didn't recognize either of them. I assumed they had grown up while I was away. Introducing himself, Dave said, I hear you've been studying counseling. I smiled and said, well, a little bit. I have a question, he said. Can a couple make it in marriage if they disagree on everything? It was one of those theoretical questions that I knew had a personal root. I went right to the point. How long have you been married? 2 years, he responded, and we don't agree on anything. Give me some examples, I said. Well, for one thing, Mary doesn't like me to go hunting. I work all week in the mill, and I like to go hunting on Saturdays. Not every Saturday, but when hunting season is in. Mary had been silent until this point when she interjected. When hunting season is out, he goes fishing. And besides that, he doesn't hunt just on Saturdays. He takes off from work to go hunting. Once or twice a year, I take off 2 or 3 days from work to go hunting in the mountains with some buddies, Dave said, irritated. What's wrong with that? What else do you disagree on? I asked. Well, she wants me to go to church all the time. I don't mind going on Sunday morning, but Sunday night I like to rest. It's all right if she wants to go, but I don't think I ought to have to go. Again, Mary spoke up. I don't really want you to go either, she said. You fuss every time I walk out the door. I knew that things weren't supposed to be getting this hot under a shady tree in front of a church. As a young, aspiring counselor, I feared that I was getting in over my head. But having been trained to ask questions and listen, I continued. What other things do you disagree on? This time, Mary answered. He wants me to stay at home all day and work in the house, she said. He gets mad if I go see my mother or go shopping or something. I don't mind her going to see her mother, he said, but when I come home, I like to see my house cleaned up. Some weeks she doesn't make the bed up for 3 or 4 days, and half the time she hasn't even started supper. I work hard, and I like to eat when I get home. Besides that, the house is a wreck, he continued. The baby things are all over the floor. The baby is dirty, and I don't like filth. She seems to be happy to live in a pig pen. We don't have very much, and we live in a small mill house, but at least it could be clean. What's wrong with her helping me around the house? Mary asked. What's wrong with him helping me around the house? Mary asked. He acts like a husband shouldn't do anything around the house. All he wants to do is work and hunt. And he expects me to do everything. Thinking that I had better start looking for solutions rather than prying for more disagreements, I looked at Dave and asked, Dave, when you were dating before you got married, did you go hunting or fish every Saturday? Pretty much, but I always got home in time to see her on Saturday night most of the time. Saturday night, excuse me. Most of the time, I get home in time to wash my truck before I went to see her. I don't like to go see her with a dirty truck. As we continued talking, I learned that Mary had gotten married right out of high school and that during her senior year, Dave came to see her almost every night and stayed for supper. He would help me do my chores around the house, and then we'd sit and talk until supper time. Dave, what did the two of you do after supper? I asked. He looked up with a sheepish smile and said, well, regular dating stuff, dating stuff. But if I had a school project, Mary said, he helped me with it. Sometimes we worked hours on school projects. I was in charge of the Christmas float for the senior class. He helped me for 3 weeks every afternoon. He was great. I switched gears and focused on the third area of their disagreement. Dave, when you were dating, did you go to church with Mary on Sunday nights? Yes, I did, he said. If I didn't go to church with her, I couldn't see her that night. Her father was strict that way. I thought I was beginning to see some light, but I wasn't sure they were seeing it. I asked Mary, when you were dating Dave, what convinced you that he really loved you? He made me different. What made him different from other guys you were dating? It was the way he helped me with everything, she said. None of the other guys cared about all that. He even helped me wash dishes when he had supper at our house. He was the most incredible person I had ever met. But after we got married, that changed. Turning to Dave, I asked, why do you think you did all these things for her before you were married? It just seemed natural for me, he said. It's what I want someone to do for me if she cared about me. And why do you think you stopped helping her after you got married? I asked. Well, I guess I expected it to be like my family. Dad worked and mom took care of things at the house. I never saw my dad doing anything around the house. Since mom stayed home, she did everything: cooking, cleaning, washing, and ironing. I just thought that was the way it was supposed to be. Now we were getting somewhere. Dave, a moment ago, what did you hear Mary say when I asked her what really made her feel loved by you and when you were dating? He responded, helping her with things and doing things with her. So, can you understand how she could feel unloved when you stopped helping her with things? He was nodding yes. I continued. It was a normal thing for you to follow the model of your mother and father in marriage. Almost all of us tend to do that. But your behavior toward Mary was a radical change from her courtship. The one thing that had assured her of your love disappeared. Then I asked Mary, what did you hear Dave say when he asked, why do you do all those things to help Mary when you were dating? He said that it came naturally to him, she replied. That's right, I said. And he also said that it is what he would want someone to do for him if she loved him. He was doing those things for you and with you because in his mind, that's the way anyone shows love. Once you were married and living in your own house, he had expectations of what you would do if you loved him. You would keep the house clean, you would cook, and so on. In brief, you would do things for him to express your love. When he did not see you doing those things, do you understand why he would feel unloved? Mary was nodding now too. I continued. I guess my guess is that the reason you are both so unhappy in your marriage is that neither of you are showing your love by doing things for each other. Mary said, I think you're right. And the reason I stopped doing things for him is because I didn't like how he bossed me around. It was as if he was trying to make me be like his mother. That's it, I said. No one likes to be forced to do anything. In fact, love is always freely given. Love cannot be demanded. We can request things from each other, but we must never demand anything. Request gives direction to love, but demands stop the flow of love. Dave looked thoughtful. I did boss her around. Demand, like you said. I guess I was disappointed in her as a wife. I know I said some cruel things, and I understand how she could be upset with me. I think things can be turned around rather easily at this junction, I said. I pulled two note cards out of my pocket. Let's try something. I want each of you to sit on the steps of the church and make a request list. Dave, I want you to list 3 or 4 things that if Mary chose to do them would make you feel loved when you walk into the house in the afternoon. If making the bed is important to you, then put it down. Mary, I want you to make a list of 3 or 4 things that you would really like to see or have Dave's help in doing. Things which, if he chose to do them, would help you know that he loved you. I'm big on lists. They force us to think concretely. Ugh. After 5 to 6 minutes, they handed me their list. Dave's list read: make up the beds every day. Have the baby's face washed when I get home. Put her shoes in the closet before I get home. Try to have supper at least started before I get home so that we could eat within 30 to 45 minutes after I get home. Sound like simple requests right there. Sound like simple requests. I read the list out loud and said to Dave, I'm understanding you to say that if Mary chose to do these four things, you will view them as acts of love towards you. Yeah, he said, just those four things. That would really make a difference in how I feel about her. Then I read Mary's list. I wish he would wash the car every week instead of expecting me to do it. I wish he would change the baby's diaper after he gets home in the afternoon, especially if I'm working on supper. Why the damn baby diaper not changed before supper? What is going on? Oh, Lord, man. I wish he would. I wish he would vacuum the house for me once a week. I wish he would mow the lawn every week in the summer and not let it go to get so tall that I'm ashamed of our yard. I said, Mary, I'm understanding you to say that if Dave chooses to do those four things, you would take his actions as genuine expressions of love towards you. I would, she said. Can you do what she asked, Dave? Yes, he said. Mary, what about you? Can you do the things on Dave's list? Yes, I can. In the past, it always seemed like no matter what I did, it was never enough. I turned to Dave. Dave, you understand that what I'm suggesting is a change from the model of marriage that your mother and father had. Oh, my dad cuts the grass and washed the car, but he didn't change the diapers or vacuum right. Never, he said, grinning. You don't have to do these. You understand? If you do them, however, it will be an. And to Mary, I said, you understand that you don't have to do these things. But if you want to express love for Dave, here are four ways that will be meaningful to him. I want to suggest that you try these for 2 months and see if they help. At the end of 2 months, you may want to add additional requests for your list and share them with each other. I would not add more than one request per month, however. This really makes sense, Mary said. Thank you, Dave said. They took each other by the hand and walked toward their car. I said to myself out loud, I think this is what church is all about. I think I'm going to enjoy being a counselor. I've never forgotten the insight I gained under the China berry tree. What I learned from Dave and Mary. After years of research, I have realized what a unique situation Dave and Mary presented me. Seldom do I meet a couple who both have the same love language. In this case, acts of service. But you may be wondering, then why were they having so much difficulty? The answer lies in the fact that they were speaking different dialects. They were doing things for each other, but not the most important things. When Mary and Dave were forced to think concretely, they easily identified their specific dialects. And when they started speaking them, their love tanks began to fill. I hope they put some gas treatment. That love tank been empty so long. You gotta put some gas treatment in that thing before you start running that love, filling that love tank up. It's easy to work at the wrong things. The husband could spend an entire long weekend doing chores, raking leaves, preparing the lawn for winter, winding up hoses and putting them away, winterizing the cars, pulling holiday decorations out of the attic, cutting logs for the fireplace, and not add a drop to his wife's love tank. On the other hand, the same husband could bring home Chinese takeout, clean the kitchen afterwards, and then put the kids to bed on his wife was wiped out after a long day, and fill her love tank to overflow. Before we leave our Milltown friends, I would like to make three other observations. First, they illustrate clearly that what we do for each other before marriage is no indication of what we will do after marriage. Before marriage, we are carried along by the forces of in love obsession. After marriage, we revert to being the people we were before we fell in love. Our are influenced by the model of our parents, our own personality, our perceptions of love, our emotions, needs, and desires. Only one thing is certain about our behavior. It will not be the same behavior we exhibited when we were caught up into being in love. That leads me to the second truth. Love is a choice and cannot be coerced. Dave and Mary were criticizing each other's behavior and getting nowhere. Once they decided to make requests of each other rather than demands, their marriage began to turn around. Criticism and demands tend to drive wedges. With enough criticism, you may get acquiescence from your spouse. He may do what you want, but probably it will not be an expression of love. You can give guidance to love by making requests. I wish you would wash the car, change the baby's diapers, mow the grass. But you cannot create the will to love. Each of us must decide daily to love or not to love our spouses. Man. If we choose to love, then expressing it in the way in which our spouses request will make our love most effective emotionally. This is the third truth, which only the mature lover will be able to hear. My spouse's criticism about my behavior provide me with the clearest clue to her primary love language. People tend to criticize their spouse most loudly in the area where they themselves have the deepest emotional needs. The criticism is an ineffective way of pleading for love. If we understand that, it may help us process their criticism in a more productive manner. A wife may say to her husband after he gives her a criticism, "It sounds like that is extremely important to you. Could you explain why it is so crucial?" Criticism often needs clarification. Initiating such a conversation may eventually turn the criticism into a request rather than a demand. Mary's constant condemnation of Dave's hunting was not an expression of her hatred for the sport of hunting. She blamed hunting as the thing that kept him from washing the car, vacuuming the house, and mowing the grass. When he learned to meet her need for love by speaking her emotional love language, she became free to support him in his hunting. Doormat or lover? Doormat or lover? I have served him for 20 years. I have waited on him hand and foot. I have been his doormat while he ignored me, mistreated me, and humiliated me in front of my friends and family. I don't hate him. I wish him no ill, but I resent him, and I no longer wish to live with him. That wife was performed. That wife has performed acts of service for 20 years, but they have not been expressions of love. They were done out of fear, guilt, and resentment. A doormat is an inanimate object. You can wipe your feet on it, step on it, kick it around, or whatever you like. It has no will of its own. It can be your servant, but not your lover. When we treat our spouses as objects, we preclude the possibility of love. Manipulation by guilt. If you were a good spouse, you would do this for me. It's not the language of love. Coercion by fear. You will do this or you will be sorry is alien to love. No person should ever be a doormat. We may allow ourselves to be used, but we are in fact creatures of emotion, thoughts, and desires. And we have the ability to make decisions and take action. Allowing oneself to be used or manipulated by another is not an act of love. It is, in fact, an act of treason. You are allowing him or her to develop inhumane habits. Love says, I love you too much to let you treat me this way. It is not good for you or for me. Learning the love language of acts of service will require some of us to re examine our stereotypes of the roles of husbands and wives. These have changed over the last several decades, but models from our past can linger. And different cultures have different expectations of the right way things are done in marriage. To Dave's credit, he was willing to break from his expectations when he realized how important it was to marry. This is necessary for all of us if our spouse's primary love language asks something of us that seems inappropriate to our role. Your turn. Many acts of service will involve household chores, but not all. What are some chore ways of serving your mate? If your spouse's love language is acts of service, number one, consider serving someone or something your spouse loves. An older relative, caring attentively for a pet, a favorite cause. Number two, print note cards with the following. Today I will show my love for you by. Complete that sentence with a task you know your spouse would love you to do. Picking up the clutter, taking old clothes to the thrift store, fixing something that's been broken a long time, weeding the garden. Bonus points if it's a chore that's been put off. Number three, ask your spouse to make a list of 10 things he or she would like for you to do during the next month. Then ask your spouse to prioritize these by numbering them 1 to 10, with number 1 being the most important and 10 being the least important. Use this list to plan your strategy for a month of love. Get ready to live with a happy spouse. Oh man, if only it was that true. Number 4, excuse me. While your spouse is away, get the children to help you with some acts of service for him. When he walks in the door, join the children in shouting, "Surprise! We love you, Daddy! We love you!" Then share your act of service. Number 5. This can also work when your spouse is away for a long period of time, such as a military deployment. Recruit the kids to help you with some act of service for him. Take a picture of the results and send it, or even better, show it to him via Skype or yell, "Surprise! We love you!" Number 6. If your request to your mate comes across as nags or put downs, try writing them in words that would be less offensive to them. Share this revised wording with your spouse. For example, "The yard always looks so nice, and I really appreciate your work. I'd like to thank you in advance for mowing the lawn this week before Paul and Amy come over for dinner." Your husband might even respond, "Where's the lawnmower? I can't wait. Try it and see." Number 7, if you have more money than time, hire someone to do the acts of service that neither of you wants to do, such as yard work or once a month deep cleaning of your home. Number 8, run interference for your spouse during his or her favorite TV show or important sports event. Take care of all the phone calls, kids' emergencies, and so on. And that was chapter 7. The fourth love language, acts of service. Acts of service. When reading chapter 7 of the 5 love languages, we're going to come back next time with love language number 5, physical touch. Physical touch. That'll be chapter 8. Love language number 5, physical touch. Yeah, we're almost there. We're almost there. We're gonna keep pushing. I'm going to chapter 8, and it has how many chapters? 13. It has 13 chapters. And we're going to chapter 8. Man, we are moving right along. We are moving right along. So that is The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. We got through that one quick today. 30 minutes. That's cool, man. Still got stuff to do before the sun goes down, before the Sabbath. I hope that y'all have a wonderful, wonderful day. I hope that there was something that you can grasp from the reading, something that you can learn and grow from. Something you can might be able to use in your, maybe that's how you maneuver, and you could use that in your life. Who knows? Maybe those things Mr. Chapman said can help you in your marriage. Who knows? Take the time out. Maybe you write some notes down. Maybe you make some lists of things you might want your spouse to do, or have your spouse do the list. See if it works. If you down for testing out the theory, go ahead and see if it works. What is it gonna hurt? What is it gonna hurt? But it is what it is. Till next time. I hope everybody have a wonderful one. Man, like, comment, subscribe, tell your people about it, man. And let's keep seeing what we can learn and grow from these books, man. And other shit. Shalom. Shilo out.